Hey everyone, this is Stephen Khuong along with my best friends Jess Furman and Natalise, and this is the Unlikely Journey Episode 1. Today we're going to learn a little bit more about Jess and Natalise, and I'll tell you a bit about myself as well. We're just going to explore this journey about folks trying to do a lot of different things and try to stay successful in all of them. The foundation here is that the three of us come from very creative backgrounds, and somehow we've landed ourselves into some very interesting entrepreneurial ventures. So we're gonna start. Let's do it. Jess, how are you this morning? Natalie, how are you guys?
Good. Amazing.
Oh my gosh, Monday morning. Can I get a little bit more flair out of you guys?
Listen, I am here for Monday. I'm ready for it.
I'm not ready for Monday.
Tell us, what has been going on? What have you done this weekend?
Ooh, I mean, I just did a Tony Robbins conference, so I'm going to try to not talk. I'm pumped up. I'm gonna try to not take up too much oxygen on this, but it was amazing. I did the Money Mastery. Actually, a friend of mine did the whole series, and she invited me to attend via Zoom with her, which was great because otherwise I would have had to go somewhere, and it was just such a gift that she let me kind of experience that with her. But so I did the Money Mastery weekend, Tony Robbins, and my mind is just blown.
So Jess, people have mixed reviews with Tony Robbins. So you felt that you've gotten something out of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm really glad I attended via Zoom for a couple reasons. One was there's a hard sell, right? Like I do believe the information is really valuable, but there is a lot of time spent on upselling to like his platinum program, or now you should take this course or that course, and I appreciate the value. Like there's a definite value to this, and I am interested in hearing about other products, but if I had paid that much money and that much of the weekend was taken up by a hard sell, I would have been annoyed, I think. The pieces we had that were valuable with the speakers were really just incredibly valuable, but there was a lot of fluff between the value.
But overall, you left the seminar feeling like you can use some of that information.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like a 50-page workbook. You go through and you look at your finances, you do projections. I'll just give you something really quickly. Like for me, like, I'm really good at budgeting and I have some plans, but they make you work backwards from, what would it take at 6% interest for you to be able to be financially free? And he's 3 different levels. There's like living kind of like just covering your basic needs, your full current budget, and then of course like complete financial freedom where you have, got, oodles of money to buy like that penthouse you want, whatever country you want to be in. But it was really eye-opening to work backwards from that number. Like I have my monthly budget, and at 6% now I know I need to have, say, like 1.1 million in the bank earning, 6% interest. And it sounds astronomical, but it really isn't when then you go in and deep dive on the calculations as to year over year, how you could make that happen based on, increasing, your salary, or, compounding interest with certain investments. And I don't know, again, I have a number. I know how to get there. I understand a lot more about asset allocation and diversification. And, it's invaluable. I mean, I didn't go to business school. I think that's the thing Natalie's to go to business school. I'm not sure if you did, but we all started off as musicians and artists. So I didn't, financial literacy wasn't necessarily something that I've ever been educated in. And I was just trying to make enough money to be able to do that tour, put out that record, or go to that country. So this is eye-opening for me.
Well, I think Tony Robbins and his entire organization should really hire you, because you just gave them a massive product marketing plug. No, that's great.
Literally, you should be like an ambassador, like an influencer for them.
I mean, but here's the thing, right? It's value. Like I've done a lot of Tony Robbins is triggering for some people. I've done some landmark stuff that's triggering for some people. Like, I'm really big on getting education and value out of it. And I don't feel particularly, indebted to those programs in the way where I feel like I have to continue to sell it to other people. If I like something, I'm going to promote it. If I find value, I don't mind sharing it. But yeah, I mean, just really valuable information. It really expensive. I mean, you have to be at the upper echelon to be able to afford. I think the whole program was like $15,000 between Wealth Mastery and.
Hold on, did you pay $15K for this?
No, my friend did. That's why I was saying it was an incredible gift. It was an incredible gift.
That's a reason to do it. If your friend's paying for it, you jump in.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sick. Okay, Natalise, tell us about your weekend as the CEO of a consumer health product company. What the hell did you do this weekend?
You know what? I had a very untraditional weekend this weekend, and I'll say this, it's because the last, like, I don't know, 10 weekends, or more, I've been working over the weekends, and this particular weekend, I was dedicated that's not true. I did do a little bit of work, but for the most part, I gave myself the permission to just sort of, watch a movie. Like I watched another movie, like like um and it was fun. Like it was just sort of like I hung out with my family, like I hung out with my husband and friend, so it was very very untraditional, and in fact, I think what I've always known, but what I was reminded of is that when you actually plan a weekend or you actually like enjoy it, it actually lasts longer, or that's how it feels like. Um, I don't know. So I had a good weekend. And you know what prompted this was I was talking with my co-founder like last week, and it was just I was just stressed out, and he could hear it maybe in my voice, and he's like, and he's so sweet. He's just like, I just want you to take your weekends and just really like let go. And he was so sincere about it. He's like, because I don't want you to burn out. He's like, that's really important to me. And for him to say that, was really meaningful.
Sounds like you have a really nice co-founder, you know.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm like slacking all of my people, like get your shit together. We got to fundraise. This I don't care if it's Sunday. So I had the opposite. I had one of these weekends where like I'm scrambling with financials,
Yeah.
um, pinging our exec team to drive and deliver, putting out fires. So I'm really glad that you had one of those weekends, and I need to learn from you and inject some of that mentality not only into my weekend but into my weekdays as well. By the way, guys, I'm gonna loop all the way back around, rewind, and go to the beginning. So for our audience members, I want to talk about the beginnings of this wonderful podcast, how we came to be. So, Jess and Natalise are both really dear friends of mine, and we've all kind of met through the entertainment realm. Jess is currently an executive doing many, many cool things in the entertainment industry. Natalise also comes from the entertainment industry, but now she is an amazing startup co-founder and CEO of Parallel Health. Now, I don't want to give it all away, so I'm actually going to pitch it to you, Natalise. Give us your 2-minute elevator pitch. Who are you? Why are you so important? Talk to us.
Well, I don't know if I can tell you why I'm important. I don't know if that's the case. But I will say that so I grew up in the Bay Area, went to Stanford undergrad, was a physics major going in. Actually, my first job was at the Exploratorium. So if anyone is like from the Bay Area, it's like a physics museum. Um,
I love the Exploratorium.
it's awesome, right? Like it was amazing. It was an amazing first job. And anyways, I'm from the Bay Area, was a physics major, went to Stanford, but I graduated in 3 years because I was signed to a record label, an indie record label at the time, and the song went on the radio, and I had shows and went on tour and did the thing. So I decided to graduate early and do it, and then I went on to start my own record label in LA. That's where I met Jess. We wrote songs together, and that was fabulous and wonderful. And Jess became a dear friend. And I took a tangent, worked in film finance for a few years, and then I went back to Stanford to get my MBA. And then have worked in kind of consumer health and wellness ever since. So now I've landed at this startup, and yeah, I hope that was 2 minutes. I don't know if it was.
That was exactly 2 minutes. You did it. All right, Jess, who are you? Let's bring it all the way back to the beginnings. Catch us up.
Me?
There's only one Jess Furman.
Sorry. I'm like, wait, my turn? Let's see. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I started off as a musician. I didn't go to school for music. I studied political science and psych. I'm a deep, deep book nerd. I started playing shows when I was about 10 or 11, coffee shops, then clubs, and yeah, and I did the artist thing for a while. I lived in New York, and I was just kind of playing nationally, and I had a pretty successful music career as like a middle class kind of musician, piecing things together. And during that time, to fund my touring and my career, I bartended when I was living in the East Village in Manhattan. But I also saw an opportunity to help my friend start his business. It was a law firm, and we ended up growing it from the two of us in like a tiny little box on Wall Street to a bigger firm with partners, multiple partners, and that really helped me. So I'd be on the road and with my musicians and my band, and I'd be on my at the time BlackBerry, and they would know that I was running this law firm out of New York. I basically did all the admin operations. I just had a knack for it. So that's kind of been it's like almost been the reverse where, now I'm an executive in music, and I think a lot of those skills have helped me. But I really funded my artist career by helping people run their businesses. And through word of mouth, I ended up picking up a bunch of clients on that front. But when I moved to LA, I kind of was a little bit sick and tired of the artist thing. I ended up switching gears and teaching myself how to record and produce. And I started producing music for TV, film, commercials. I landed an agent. I started doing really well on that front. And I realized that it was probably just easier if I went direct and launched my own business. So I own a company called Sound Revolver. It's a custom music house. In the last 2 years, it's white labeled underneath a bigger group that I'm a music executive for. I oversee all licensing for Big Noise Music Group, which consists of a couple of labels, a publishing entity, we have a recording studio, and my custom house is all under that umbrella. And yeah, and I basically, I'm Steve. I've gotten to be really good friends with you and meet you through Natalise. Natalise is one of my most cherished friends because we have had a wild ride starting off, sitting in my studio in Hollywood and talking about dating and in both doing the artist thing and the songwriting thing. And, we've just had so many transitions since then. And it's just awesome to look around and see, kind of how far both of us have come. And yeah, and I'm just grateful to be part of this Unlikely Journey podcast with you guys.
Well, I gotta say, I'm so inspired by the both of you guys. Yeah, Natalise is the common denominator here. I met Natalise like way back in the days. I'm not gonna date us, but this was during her first record deal. And a little bit about myself. I come from a similar background. I grew up in a immigrant family, raised in Oakland, California. Started my first little business when I was 12, DJing school dances. And then from there, I went on to produce hip hop and rap with, God, there's so many talented hip hop artists coming out of Oakland at that time. During the golden age of hip hop, we started actually a small record label. We were selling, believe it or not, cassette tapes at school dances out of the trunks of our cars. And ultimately, we got picked up by a distribution company, and I was able to sell the record label and put myself through school, graduated from Cal, and then fast forward now, gosh, I don't know how many decades now, but I am currently a co-founder and CEO of a fintech slash edtech startup. And yeah, it's been a very much an unlikely journey. So let's start with Natalise. For folks that can relate to our journey and that may be in a position where they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure what I want to do. I feel kind of stuck. I'm not like, I just have too many things going on." What's one thing, Natalise, that you can speak on to give some aspiration to folks that are in this predicament?
Well, I feel old saying this, because I feel like, I think one thing that's awesome about like Gen Z, and younger is that I feel like the world is so much more open to like many possibilities, and the idea that you don't have to tie yourself to one identity. I feel like for me, and would love to hear what you guys have experienced, but I really struggled, like having to choose. I felt like I always had to choose, was I the, at Stanford, I was the academic, and then I had to either choose to be, business or not. Um, or a doctor or not, or a lawyer or not. And then when I was a musician, I felt like I had to be a musician, but I couldn't tell people that, I went to Stanford. And, um, you know, I think today it's a little bit more fluid in that, you can be a lot of things and that's okay. And I don't know, does that resonate?
It does resonate with me, and in particular, Natalie's, I think there's this undertone too. Like, both you and I are Asian, and I don't want to overly generalize this, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's particularly difficult to have like multiple identities growing up in an Asian household, right? Because your parents are like very single track minded and they want you to pursue one thing and stay committed. I mean, that was my experience. Was that your experience as well? Or
I mean, I think they were definitely more rigid when I was growing up, and then I think when I did the music thing, it was sort of like, okay, we'll let her experiment, and then she'll come back and be a lawyer or whatever. Um, and I think they're perhaps a little bit more forgiving than perhaps others, but after that, um, it sort of everything sort of went out the window.
well, what about you, Jess? As a white girl growing up, how was
Well, I mean, okay, so growing up a white girl, I think, I mean, I guess if we want to relate, so I actually had a very interesting upbringing because I was a very, very artsy kid who played guitar, but I also was a really good soccer player. So I kind of straddled two worlds of like, I was just a de facto jock, quote unquote, because I was, pulled up to varsity pretty young. And at the same time, I had an eyebrow ring and a nose ring. And and it was a really interesting perspective because I got to see the behind the scenes on both sides of just the vulnerabilities. Like, my, jock friends wanted to come to my shows, right? I was playing these galleries and, they weren't really familiar with, friends who were playing guitar or music or any of that stuff. And they would come to these galleries that I'd be playing. And, my artsy friends would be kind of mean to them because it was like, the other mean girl side where all of a sudden now you're in our territory, and vice versa. Like, I know that a lot of my artsy friends felt like ostracized by some of the quote unquote jock groups. So I don't, I had a really unique experience where I think that, I've always been really outgoing and I've always tried to be inclusive of people around me that, kind of are being bullied. And, I don't know, for me, it kind of just gave me this eye-opening experience where I could see vulnerabilities on all sides and that people kind of dig in on their groups and their identities. And, at the heart of it, people just wanted to be able to experience something new and different. And I think being a beginner in any of these spaces is really, is really challenging. And, and I think as far as like your earlier question about the unlikely journey in general, I mean, I just, one of the things my dad always told me was like, put as many things in your toolbox as you can and try to figure it out, like don't just go for one thing, like get as many skills in your toolbox as you can and you'll have more options. And, I think especially coming from, music world, like and staying in it as long as I've stayed in it, you really have to pivot. You have to be willing to pivot. You have to look and go, okay, people aren't buying CDs anymore. It's digital streaming. How do I shift this? There are home recording studios. I have to be able to have broadcast quality recordings. How do I teach myself how to do this? And, I think what is great about where we are growing up is we're doing this podcast remote, right? From the three of us all in different areas, on the West Coast, right? And, we have access to information and we have access to resources that are pretty approachable to people if you have access to the internet and you have some form of computer. So I do think it's leveled things off a lot for people. I'm not speaking to the race side because I am a white girl and have a lot of privilege that comes along with being a white girl. The LGBTQ stuff, I'm part of that community. I identify as queer. Again, it hasn't been that difficult for me because I grew up in New York and I live in LA. So I've kind of had a really easy deal of even, that type of discrimination just by being in areas that are generally pretty accepting of sexuality.
Well, let me ask you this question here. Being a creative individual, one would assume that you're not necessarily business minded or, the entrepreneurial thing doesn't come easy. So I'd like to hear from you guys, how did you make the transition from being a creative into like a business person?
I think Natalise will probably agree with me with this. When you're an artist, you are a business person. Like you are putting together your
Absolutely.
your budgets for your recordings. You're organizing your bands. You are like, I mean, photo, branding, marketing, sales. Like you are your own business. It's your own business. So I think that if you, and I do think that is a benefit that I had, and I don't want to speak for Natalise, but being an artist, I think more than just like maybe being a player that's a musician that supports another artist, like it's a different kind of thing where you are running your whole, it's a business. So, I think the minute you start to like apply those skills and you shine your light anywhere else, you're like, God, I had to do all these things by myself. Actually, this isn't as difficult now that I'm in a business world because I have a team of people that are being paid by someone other than me, working 8 jobs to hire them to play with me or to do my posters.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is like 100% true. It's funny because now when I talk to, you know, people who ask, investors or, colleagues who are like, what was it like? And I was like, like 90% of the things I know about business, I learned it because I was an artist, because it is 90% hustle, and 10% like massive organization. um, so I think, what's interesting here is like that's the reality, but I think the perception of that, and Steve, I think that's what you're maybe pointing to, is that the perception, like you have to overcome that perception, even though the reality is so different, that, oh, okay, well, you're a creative, so you can't be business minded. And I'll tell you something kind of, I mean, it's really sad, but like funny, I guess, to me now, is my first week of business school at Stanford, someone asked me, and I obviously won't say who, you guys wouldn't know anyway, but like, he asked me, "So why are you here?" He's like, "Are you here to find a husband?" And I was like,
Oh my
"Wow.
God. What?
Wow." Yes. I was
Rewind. Did
like,
he actually? Someone asked you that? Were you like ready to punch him in the face?
well, sometimes it's like he was sincere, and which is like, and I think like that's a whole other topic, but it's like he wasn't asking me because he was trying to be mean or anything. Like he was actually like really curious. And so, I just I kind of made it more lighthearted and enlightened him a little bit. But um yeah, I mean, but this is what you're talking about, right? It's like the perception of like creative versus business. Um and what I'm saying is I think that in, younger generations, I think people are more accepting of the fact that yeah, you can be creative and super smart. I mean, it's a thing, like um
Jess, you had mentioned like, the willingness to make mistakes. Speaking of making mistakes, like how many times or like kind of go back in history, right? Just like, do me a favor, close your eyes for a moment. Just think about how many times you all have cried through your career, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it sounds super cliche to say like, okay, make mistakes, but these mistakes that I'm thinking about and you guys can add to it. I mean, these are some of these things are like at the moment they feel like, oh my God, this is self-destructing. Like I can never come back from this, right? I'm sure you guys have had experienced these things dozens of times. I know I have.
I mean, I'll give a quick one. Like, when I got dropped from I had like a hybrid management publishing deal. It's the only one I've ever had that was at least on the publishing inside and combined. And I remember signing that deal and waking up the next morning and feeling like, oh, for the next year or so, I have steady payments coming in. I've been piecing things together for a really long time. Fast forward 3 months and the deal went south. They changed their mind. They were spending a lot of money. They wanted to pivot in a different direction. And I got dropped. And, and I woke up the next morning. And it wasn't just that I got dropped. It was that they wanted me to pay back the advance they'd already given me, but they'd also asked that I clear my calendar for a full year. And I had never had a clear calendar. Since I was like 10, maybe 8 even. Like I've always had projects lined up, things lined up, like, and they requested of me that I clear my calendar for a year to play ball with them because they were going to plan everything. So when they dropped me, I woke up and my brain almost felt like it was exploding in my head because not only did I lose my one income source with this deal? Of course, there was the heartbreak over having lost the deal, thinking I'd finally gotten the deal that was going to like really change my life with this management team that believed in me. I was lying there and I had nothing on my calendar for a year. And I honestly don't remember how I got up from that day, but I did, I did. I hit the pavement, like, and piece things back together. But that for me was probably, at least career wise, one of the scariest things I ever had to go through, because I had no income, no jobs. I owed back the advance. We went to a legal battle with my attorneys. Like, they owned my name. So my name, Jess Furman, my management owned. I had to countersue them to get my birth name back. It was bad. But also, like, you go through that and you're like, well, that's kind of the worst case scenario I'd ever imagined, being dropped and having someone own my birth name and me having to sue them to potentially get it back. So if I survived that, career wise, I feel like, bring it on, bring it on with anything else.
Jess, I love you.
I love you too. We've both been through it. Natalise, you have stories like this, right?
There are levels to this, Jess.
Yeah.
I have not heard about like someone taking your birth name, but okay, that's insane.
I got it back, but we had to countersue them, and I ended up owing my attorneys just as much as I would have owed them. But I have my name.
I'm really glad you got your name back, because I really like calling you Jess.
Thank you. I would have been the friend formerly known as Jess. You would have had to do like a weird symbol for me.
Natalise, tell us about these catastrophic experiences where you feel like you can never recover from it. But in hindsight, those were the things that made you who you are today. So give us one example from your life.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit like broader, like, and at the risk of sounding vague, but I think what I've learned about myself, and something that I've tried to change in the last, few years specifically, is when I look back on on the decisions I made as an artist. I think a lot of times I was so swayed by other people, because part of me is like, there's like a people pleaser like element to me. Like, I want everyone to be happy, I want everyone to be proud of me, I want to do the right thing, like, quote unquote. And that's dangerous, I think, when you are an artist, because everyone has an opinion and not everyone's opinion is right. Like, and even if they've had, like a strong resume and they've worked at many, many different labels, it's like they're all trying to be creative themselves. And so this creative direction, like, as an artist, you have to own it. And I think for me, the one thing I regret is that I never like put my stake in the ground. I mean, at least at the beginning, the first, I would say, like, half of my music career, I never put a stake in the ground and said, this is me, I don't care. Like, I let people just sort of push me, and it's like, oh, this is going to be great for you, like, you should do this totally makes sense. I'm like, okay. It's like, I just I wanted so badly to be an artist, that I forgot to be an artist, you know and I think it wasn't until, like, later on in my career where I just said, fuck it, like, I don't really care what you say, like, I just want to do what I want to do. And, like, and I think, like, that in some ways has empowered me to kind of do what I'm doing now. Because as an entrepreneur and at, like, starting your startup, there's so many people are gonna be like, that's wrong, like, that's not gonna work, like, I don't get it, it's not the right time, like, not gonna invest in you, whatever. And it's like, you just gotta own it, you know?
Well, and at least, did you experience this? Because I did. I would have like these periods where I'd drum up a lot of attention from like different labels, and then they would sit down and give me their plan for me, and they'd be like, "We love everything you're doing. We just would change you in these all critical ways."
Oh my God,
And
yes.
you're like, "Wait a minute, you like me enough, you want to sign me?" But then you're like, they would have a brand meeting with you, and you're like, "But I don't do R&B. Like, I guess I could learn to dance, but I'm an acoustic guitar player." Like,
Right.
did you have that experience? They're like,
Oh
"This
my
is
God.
perfect," and now we're gonna change it all.
Oh my God. I walked into a meeting at MTV, I remember, and they were literally like, do you know who Tila Tequila is? I'm like, the porn star? Like, like, they're like, she's really hot right now. Like, if you just kind of dress like this and do that. And I'm like, but
Oh
that's
my
not
god.
me. Like, oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I just love this idea of, finding liberation from experiencing heartache is ultimately what has led the two of you, and for me, inclusive as well, to understanding our own identity, which then leads to being okay with owning multiple identities. And I think for many people that have gone through this journey or on this journey, that's the most critical thing, is to like be okay with you constantly have to rebrand yourself. And by the way, that is a freaking hard thing to do, right? So with that being said, we are going to leave that for episode 2 of The Unlikely Journey. I'm Stephen Khuong, along with Jess Furman and Natalise. We're going to sign out, wishing you all a wonderful Monday. Looking forward to the next one. Peace.